Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Harsh Reality with your host, Harsh Ahmed. I I wanted to try something different on this beautiful Wednesday night instead of just the usual stuff and the usual show and the usual nonsense. You know. So anyway, on that note, let's get right into it when it comes to some of the other fun stuff. For instance, today's show is called The Harsh Reality Definition and Phrase. Agreed. No. Like, for instance, let's take the example of indoor voice. Unless I'm in a library, I don't know what an indoor voice is. Because usually an indoor voice is so quiet. Like an indoor is like, okay, we gotta speak like this. It's fine. It's fine. It's this. But how many people can hear that? Not many. Not many. Now they're really sensitive. Now they have sensitive hearing. They can't hear that. You know. This is considered to some. This might be considered an outdoor voice. Not really. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, the old phrase I'd have is, if your vocal cords are hurt, if your vocal cords hurt the next day, you were definitely screaming. I don't know, but when do we stop caving to sensitive idiots? Because it seems like the world's been doing that. You know, stop caving to sensitive retards. Like, what? Why does the world have to be tailor made for like the dumbest people and the dumbest, weakest, and most useless people in the entire world? Yeah, I used to remember like, growing up in this country when you had to behave a certain way and adjust a certain way or do things a certain way, or else, well, you got what you deserved. And that's not the case anymore. But speaking of that, let's talk about certain definitions, like setting boundaries. You know, that's a good thing. In theory, that's a very good thing. But what if you setting a boundary causes someone to get into it with your... Oh, who are we kidding? Nobody picks fights with each other anymore. Those days are over. Those days are done. Who are we kidding? That stuff is like a blast of the past. But no, but what if that pisses people off? Well, that's stupid, right? But what if you're so hell bent on setting boundaries that you end up bullying somebody? Well, then I don't know. But on the other hand, tolerance. Okay, it's nice to tolerate people in theory, but if you tolerate somebody to the point where you're basically, humiliating yourself, then you're not doing it right. And obviously, there's boundaries and everything. But those are easy examples. Now, what if we talk about a situation like the phrase "do no harm"? Do no harm. What does that mean? In theory, do no harm means you're not purposely trying to put pain onto others. Not intentionally, at least, but we all know the phrase the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. They're very good intentions. I don't get it. But then again, there's people on this site that make the same memes over and over again that get kind of boring, so I don't know. Anyway, so but that's the thing though, do no harm. Let's talk about that. Because someone's mere existence can harm 10 different people on average. If you're a political activist, if you tell the truth about somebody, and that someone is a person that's very known, very well liked, or whatever, at the very least, you're hurting the feelings of the people in their life and the people in their world. But if you expose even more of the truth, then if they have to get certain, and certain products from them or something, then because you're honest and you're doing the right thing, what ends up happening? You're the ones you're causing pain and suffering onto someone just for doing the right thing. So there's that in mind. Other times, if we're talking about certain policies, when you're talking about legislation that gets passed, there's always going to be two groups of people: people in favor of that, people against it. And the people against that certain policy are going to get harmed. The people in favor of it are going to be fine. I mean, look at all this electric car company. Look at all this this move to electric, move to electric, move to electric. Who's going to get harmed by it? The common person. Who's going to be fine? The ones that can afford electric cars. But the thing is, most of these cars aren't even, electric cars really aren't great for the environment anyway because you're mining 70,000 years worth of cobalt. Now, but see, it's that catch-22 because on one hand, competition's a good thing. Sometimes it's even necessary. But on the other hand, when there's too much competition, to the point where people can't even live without bad things happening, then, well, it's a problem. I mean, the fact that there's so many billionaires that exist in like, for instance, like a billionaire like Jeff Bezos, or a billionaire like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. Think about how many starving children there exist because people like them exist. At least 500,000, if not more. But are they doing anything inherently evil? Okay, they probably are. But are they doing anything more evil than anyone else in power? Not necessarily. But yeah, because they're alive, there are that many children that are starving. I mean, obviously, Bill Gates is a pedophile, so he's harming more than 500,000 children. Let's call it a day. But that's besides the point. But even someone like I don't know, not those two, another person in the billionaire class, just anyone else, like Tim Ryan or something. As far as I know, there's nothing evil about the man, but the fact of the matter is he's a billionaire, so therefore. Right. So therefore, someone like him, his mere presence, his mere existence is harming millions of children. To hundreds of thousands of children. This is what it is, sadly. Right. So that's something that people really don't take into consideration. So that's just what it is. Like, let's just say two people are people are just driving on the highway, right? And one guy goes at a higher speed, not trying to do anything bad, just trying to get from point A to point B a little faster than other people in traffic. But if you cut someone off, and that person gets into an accident, albeit doesn't touch their car, anything. Next thing you know, they're gonna start yelling about, "Oh, you did this to me," even though he wasn't responsible. You have a brake pad. Your car should work. Those other things. But what happens when? But what happens when the people in power, the people trying to take power, are as evil as the ones in power? What becomes of that? I don't know. Nothing good. And then it becomes the same cycle. Like, for instance, another term, political correctness. That was supposed to be about people coming together, not bullying, not saying certain words, not saying certain phrases. But what did it become? It became a way to cyberbully people. It became a way to tell people to censor people and tell them to keep their mouth shut. That's what it became. You know, it was a nice concept that got destroyed within seconds, minutes, really. Didn't realize it. And I was seeing a post today about how, I don't know if it was on Robert Walker's post or Will Markham's post. And I think the comment came from Will. It was about how like forcing people to be nice has had some. I'm paraphrasing. Has had some very grave consequences, and it does because you can't force people to be a certain way. Not at least by the state or whatever. No, that's just terrible. I mean, we really can't do it even in general. I mean, the most you could do is give people a taste of their own medicine, and then it balances out. But that's about it. But I wouldn't even suggest that at this point. Unless like online stuff, then whatever. But speaking of those tactics where it is giving someone a taste of the medicine, doxing. What is doxing? What actually is doxing? Because the way people describe doxing and the legal definition are not the same thing. Doxing is when you have private information being exposed publicly for the sake of humiliating someone. That's what doxing is. The problem is people don't really do that anymore. Most doxes are public record. Most quote-unquote doxes are public record. If you're posting someone's personal information that is in public records from one place to another, you're not doxing. That's copy pasta. You're copying and pasting. Anything that is obtained publicly or through public records is not doxing. Doxing is when it's private information being posted. If you get someone's bank account statements or someone's financial statements, someone's medical records or whatever, through illegal means, or through private means, then and you post it online to troll somebody, then that's doxing and that's horrible. But if you're just going through public records trying to be funny, then it's not. It's trolling. That's what it is. It's copy pasting and trolling, but that's all it is. It's trolling. And that's the weird part. It's like do no harm, you mind your own business, and yet people are still harmed by your existence. How do I know this? Because at CSHR Radio, people like myself and Scott Saunier and a few others, the fact that we're still around doing whatever we want to do is pissing off a lot of people, especially at the SAD camp. Those fucking pedophiles and deadbeat parents and losers and CP distributors. They're all horrible people anyway. But the bottom line is our mere existence is pisses them off. Just like back in the day when Robert Walker and I were in activism, were in politics, the things we would do would piss off a lot of Greens, a lot of progressives, a lot of leftists, and even some right-wingers from time to time. Why? Because we were just doing what we thought was best. It wasn't because we were malicious or whatever. I mean, we had a little. We were a little mischievous, but we weren't that bad. But all we did was tell the truth, and it pissed people off. We weren't harming anybody per se, but again, it comes out of that. So. But I mean, let's break this on a macro, like a battle of the bands. Like, let's say there's a battle, like Robert Walker says, that, true, and good times. Now, let's just have something more fun, like Battle of the Bands. It's a competition. Whoever wins gets a certain prize, whoever loses gets nothing. But at the same time, the band that wins, yeah, they basically played for free and they harm themselves because of it. Whereas the band that loses, they played for free, but they got nothing out of it. So it's even worse. But they weren't harming each other. They're just playing music. And the guy hosting the competition didn't think it was harming anyone. But, that was the harm that was done. So the phrase do no harm is a very vague statement. Very vague statement. And the harsh reality of it is, I'm not sure people think any of these things. But then again, there are certain people on my friends list who have become so or being driven insane by their news feed that all they can do is make memes. And it's kind of like, if your news feed is driving you that crazy, just either create an alt or just sign out. But some of them prefer memes, and that's okay. Personally, they're the ones I like and they're ones I don't like. But but I mean, it is what it is. So. In the meanwhile, let's see if we could get some other people to try to join the show. So, Robert says, "Are you on a keyboard?" Well, technically, yes. It's a laptop. And so I wonder. So I wonder, how the hell did these definitions become so distorted? Even though I'm seeing a liberal and a conservative, they seem to be two different things. A liberal is someone who's for civil rights, civil liberties, and all this others, free speech and all this other stuff. And instead, what have they become? The complete antithesis of that. And a conservative is, well, someone who believes in a small government, a small this, and fiscal responsibility and all that. And what are conservatives now? Well, a lot of them really aren't that anymore. So it's a very interesting time. So, on that note, yes, I am on a key. Yes, I am on a laptop which has a keyboard. So let's just see how we can get this show going. Mm. So that's the thing in life. Yeah. The words and phrases really don't mean what they're supposed to mean. So there you have it. And I just wonder what happened to people? What happened in the world we lived in? What happened to this country? I used to remember when people had to adjust, be a certain way, or they weren't going to make it. And now it feels like the people in charge of controlling other people's behavior are the ones who couldn't survive in the old world. When I mean old world, I mean things from like 20, 30 years. I'm not even talking about like fucking like 100, 100 200 years ago. No. So that's, I just don't get it. Mm. So, right. And on that note, let's play us out with some more music. Because I'm not really sure what to say at this point. The bottom line is that people don't seem to learn. The words truther, critical thinker, and researcher do not mean what they used to mean. They're supposed to mean something and they don't mean them at all. If you call yourself a truther and you can't decipher truth from the lies, you're not much of a truther. If you call yourself a critical thinker and you can't and you don't even have any critical thinking skills, then you're kind of a schmuck. And if you call yourself a researcher, but you don't even know how to look up public records, then you're not really much of a researcher. So that's another thing, the definition. I used to remember when those words meant something. Now all they mean are now all they are is just labels to be retarded. Because before, when I used to hear words like truth or critical thinker, researcher, I had like an expectations of people for certain types of people. This especially then, it's like you're a truther, you're a critical thinker, you're supposed to be smarter than everybody else. You're supposed to be above a certain level, mentally speaking. You're supposed to see patterns that other people don't see. I shouldn't have to explain to you the most basic fucking things. But like I shouldn't have to tell you like you shouldn't be told when someone is lying to you. But unfortunately, that's not really the case anymore. So, and on that note, so what can you do? Not much of anything at this point. And on that note, this has been another edition of Harsh Reality. This is Harsh Schmitz on you. But yeah, that's the problem these days. It's just words don't mean what they're supposed to mean anymore. And that's why I have so much chaos in the country. But then again, we live in a world where things that are supposed to be shock and awe and have an impact or certain exposure is supposed to happen. That's not the case anymore. I mean, for instance, Jeffrey Epstein, when he got arrested, when he got killed or faked his death and went to Israel or whatever, right? And the client list fell out, and the client list came out. It wasn't even that big of a story. It was like, okay, whatever, and that's it. When WikiLeaks came out, Yeah, it was like shocking to people who didn't know how the world worked, but to a lot of people, it was just, okay, fine, whatever. Our politicians are crooks and pedophiles and war criminals, whatever. And Epstein's list, when that came out, whatever. Our celebrities and our entertainers and actors and musicians and whomever are all pedophiles. All right, well, what can you do? And then, of course, when elections are being rigged, it's like, whatever, doesn't matter anymore. Same with when 9/11 came out. It's like, oh, well, our two greatest allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel, really hate us. Well, fuck it. That's just those who believe the official narrative. For those who know better, I mean, you know how that goes. The bottom line is that, things that should be a scandal, things that should be a major story, are just things that are just are just exposed to the public with sheer apathy and then swept under the rug like they never happened. And unfortunately, that's going to keep being like that until people change. So, on that note, this has been another edition of Harsh Reality. This is Harsh Time. You, life is harsh, but to live it. And instead, I want to play some Wednesday jazz to get you over the hump's the right word, but yeah. And on that note, this has been another edition of the Harsh Reality. This is Harsh. That life is harsh, and everyone wants to live it. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening. And to tune into this, I will sign out with Summer Dream by Dr. Saxlove, Dreams of You. If we're going to get this.